You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
You're listening to FrameworkFocus, the podcast that explores trends, innovations, and insights in the long-term care pharmacy industry. Join us as we connect the entire LTC ecosystem.
Hey, welcome back to the next episode of FrameworkFocus. This is a SoftWriters podcast. My name's Todd Urey. I'm a guest host again. I'm so excited to be here. Framework is an interesting platform, Framework LTC. The SoftWriters team brought me into the entire pharmacy industry. And I was just talking to our special interview guest today about my experience in this. And think about going from something that was very technical. I was in telecommunications. We had to understand, this was before, I don't want to sound old, but oh geez, I am getting old. But it was before internet. I'm going to admit it. This is 1995, 96. And we sold Frame Relay. And Frame Relay was a private data pipe that would go from one location to the next, and you could push all kinds of data through it, and it was great. So when I made the jump to the pharmacy industry, and we were working for SoftWriters, presenting a SQL-based system, the first of its kind in long-term care pharmacy, to be able to really help pharmacies leverage and grow and use data, because they weren't able to do anything with some of their data. Some of that data in those systems back in the day, that's all you could use it for, is the system that you were in. You really couldn't share or push it to Excel or do any kind of analysis. So wow, we've come a long way. And I'm so excited to have the SoftWriters team using podcasting as a way of communication, as a way of updating the markets to what's happening in the long-term care space, in technology. We also like to touch on policy and things that are happening. And some of the people that have come through the Framework Focus podcast are just superstars. And today's guests are no different. And this is great for me because it's special that I get an opportunity to welcome. In my time at SoftWriters, the very first magazine that I really grabbed onto was Computer Talk. And that was by the Lockwood family. And with that, I want to welcome Will Lockwood to FrameworkFocus.
Well, thanks so much, Todd. Appreciate that connection way back in the day. Yeah, we've been doing it, Computer Talk and now Pharmacy Technology Management Review since 1980. So it goes back well before the internet, right back to the beginning of personal computers, microcomputing.
That's right. Another one of my favorites in media is someone who's taught me a lot about pivoting and changing and keeping up with the times, as well as one of my most favorite publications, which is known as 20 Ways, is the founder and CEO of RxInsider. And Greg, you and I met, like you told me right before we started recording, like 2005. Welcome to FrameworkFocus. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Thanks for having us on. And yeah, not only did we meet, back in 2005, but it was SoftWriters that brought us together back then. That's when I met you when you were with them. So it is kind of a cool full circle situation here. But not date ourselves. Yeah, it's been a long time, in this market together.
And it's been special to me to see things change, but there's been a lot of positivity recently in growing up in pharmacy. The publications that I use to educate have evolved. Both of you have created media companies that continuously evolve. We're going to be talking about exactly that. This is long-term care insights from the media leaders. And it's exciting for me to be a part of this because, like I said, your organizations really help to do a massive amount of education before video, before social media, before podcasting. And I want to start off with Will. You know, your family has been a publishing staple in the pharmacy profession, like you said, since 1980. Talk to me about anything that stood out to you when you were watching your dad build this publication, and what was like the first thing that happened that really truly revolutionized computer talk for you personally and in your experience?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been fascinating to watch over the time that I've been involved in it, and seeing how valuable connections and education that comes, from pharmacists speaking to each other, which has always been one of our goals, I think, with the magazine, is to give a platform for pharmacists to give their best ideas and to talk about where they're having success with technology. And I think that's been, that's been big. And there's been a lot of, new, goes way back to when my dad was tasked with selling pharmacy systems to the market by, I guess it was IMS at the time, I think he worked for. And, they had a pharmacy, they had some kind of software they wanted to sell. And this is like 1979. And, I can tell you my dad probably didn't know what that stuff was. And a lot of the pharmacists didn't either. So he said, well, let's figure out how we can educate people about the market and about technology. And that's what, that's been the goal ever since.
And now the evolution's continued with the dawn of the Pharmacy Technology and Management Review. I've been, like I said, a fan of your writing, of your organization of information. Because of your magazine, I came up with my own blog, which transformed into the Pharmacy Podcast Network. So that's literally like some of the lineage of where this has all come from. But talk to us about the birth of PTMR.
Yeah, brand new title for us this year, and just a way for us to evolve and expand and kind of refine the focus of what we do. And it's largely the same idea we want to talk about. We say the intersection of technology and pharmacy management, and that intersection has been getting busier over the years. It's been getting more critical. There's really not any way that you're running a successful pharmacy without a pretty robust technology suite these days. And so, that is our goal, is to keep the market informed, keep pharmacists informed, help everybody understand what's out there and what's going on.
Greg, the first thing that stood out when you and I met was just your constant movement as a publisher and someone who was passionate about keeping up with the times, and something that was so revolutionizing to the whole what is media was you dabbled in being able to build someone's career portfolio before LinkedIn even got hot. And that was very successful. And then you've come out with other publications. We're so honored to be part of the Pharmacy 500. But something that stood out to me when it first came out, which is still one of my most favorite publications in the market, was 20 Ways. So just tell our listeners, just in case they might be connecting the dots right now and realizing who you are, but talk to us about the evolution of RxInsider.
Sure. Well, starting back when I first entered, I suppose, the pharmacy world, and this has nothing to do with RxInsider, but it does sort of paint a picture of where a lot of us have been over the years. But when I first started, since this is a technology-focused podcast, when I first started, I was in high school in the mid to late 80s for CVS, and they had no pharmacy management system. We typed everything out literally on a typewriter back then, on hard copy labels, and so it's been fascinating, not just seeing but living through all these massive stages of technology, whether it was the introduction of pharmacy management systems, to the internet, to social, to all these different major waves of change. It's just been an incredible journey. But RxInsider, we started back in the early 2000s, around 2000. And you're right, we were originally essentially just a, not going to crazy detail, but essentially a job board for pharmacists. And we evolved over the years, and we really just kind of listened to the market, listened to pharmacists on where they were struggling, what their needs were. And, you brought up the 20 Ways publication. That concept, that 20 Ways publication concept just came out of the need to educate the community, the pharmacy management community on products and services that they just weren't aware of. If you are looking for a new wholesaler, you can perform research in just different areas to find a new wholesaler, because you know that you need one and start looking for a new one. But there's also that whole world out there where you don't know what you don't know. And that's why we launched the 20 Ways, is to profile 20 unique ways a pharmacy can improve their operations, whether it's around profit margin or patient care, but hopefully give them 20 unique ways and ideas on how they can just improve their business, and hopefully educate them on some new technology services that they just weren't aware of out there. So it's been very successful. We're going on our 12th year with that publication, and couldn't be happier with the response from it. So that was the genesis of that particular publication.
Yeah, it's off of the success of the Pharmacy Platinum pages. And I remember using this guide to help me identify organizations that were out there that I could build partnerships with. APIs at the time, when I was moving from long-term care to the mixed pharmacies that were doing community and long-term care. And then the next phase for me was moving to specialty pharmacy and understanding APIs of other pharmacy packaging systems or consulting systems. And I'd go to the Platinum pages to find these organizations and use it as an identifier. So it's been good to our industry because of the identification of how you've grown the subjects and strengthened the subjects. And then I think the detail and the speciality of all of that is the birth of 20 Ways.
Yeah. What we discovered with Platinum pages is it's more of it's always been more of a resource, a buyer's guide, if you will. So if a pharmacy manager knew what they needed, they can turn to it and find all the leaders there, which is great. But back to, you don't know what you don't know. If they knew they had to look for something, they could turn to it, but they weren't learning necessarily about new stuff in the market. And that's why we kind of paired it up with the 20 Ways. So we can support the market both ways.
So, Will, I remember when Computer Talk started doing features, I really liked the certain columnists that you would invite to repeat. One of them that's very special to me is Bruce Nealon. He's been part of your organization as an editor and someone who's been a publisher of so many different stories that he's telling. And that evolved, and your organization helped him to evolve into what's known as the road trip guy. He's actually out there right now as we speak, doing his, I don't know if that's his 4th or 5th or 6th tour as the road trip guy, but he's out there right now doing it. And now this has evolved to something that's very heavy into technology specifically. So talk to us about the evolution of this and where PTMreview.com, Pharmacy Technology and Management Review, where are you guys going into the future of the pharmacy profession?
Yeah. So that's right. We have had a number of really excellent contributors and columnists over the years. We continue to have Bruce has written for us a number of times recently, and he has a wonderful ability to to really get out there and engage with pharmacists in their pharmacies and learn what's going on, what their thoughts are, what their challenges are, their goals are. And we have some other excellent columnists. We have Marsha Milanig, Catalyst Enterprises, and she's extremely dynamic. I really can dive into subjects and understand them in ways that are very impressive when it's something that maybe she hasn't necessarily been an expert in before. We have the folks at Pharmacy. What is it? PHSI, Pharmacy Health. I'm blanking on the acronym now. After all the years of interacting with them, Ann Johnson and those folks, and they're wonderful. You know them as well, I think, Todd, because they're there in the Pittsburgh area, and they're there again, a level of expertise that's really significant. And Pharmacy Healthcare Solutions Incorporated. There you go, PHSI. And and Brent Fox from Auburn. He goes back. Do you remember Bill Felke? Bill Felke was always the gadget guy. He would come to NCPA and different conventions like that, and he always had, back in the day, he had the Palm Pilot or whatever it was, and everyone was like, "Whoa, what is that? How you can get your email on that?" Yeah, and such a dynamic guy, so interesting. And Brent has they used to write in our column together, and Brent has carried that on. And again, they bring very sort of unique perspectives, unique expertise. Marsha has, this sort of very dynamic ability to dig in, almost like a research expert. PHSI is a consultancy. That's their business, and then Brent brings that kind of academic angle. So yeah, a lot of good stuff like that. And where we're hoping to go is to use PTMR as a way to connect pharmacists with this content that educates them, and then also give them an opportunity to learn about the products and services that are out there. You'll see that there's we have had a buyer's guide and what we're now calling our vendor showcase for a number of years. And that PTMR vendor showcase is another opportunity for people to learn about the products and services that are going to be right there in that intersection of technology and pharmacy management.
All right. I want to talk about you as media leaders, and specifically long-term care pharmacy. Will, I'm going to start out with you. Talk to us about the trends that you're seeing. What are you excited about in the realm of technology, in the fusion of long-term care pharmacy specifically?
Okay, so technology and long-term care pharmacy, huh? I think I'm sure we're all going to talk about it a number of times. We have to talk about AI. And that I think is still very much nascent. It's, we're figuring out where that's going to be going. I think there has been a real sort of evolution and solidification of some of those technologies that seemed really new at the time, like document management, electronic prescribing, dispensing automation, and all the varieties of dispensing automation that you may need to be able to offer to communities in order to serve them, to patients and residents, to serve them as best you can. And I think there's a lot of those things that have been becoming the standard of practice, and have really now solidified as such. And the biggest one is probably going to be AI. And you look at that, and it's whatever form it ends up taking, I think it's going to be that opportunity for there to be a further leap in efficiency, and which is what pharmacies desperately need. They aren't getting paid anymore to do what they do. In fact, there's some significant trends that I think we'll talk about that suggest that they're just going to keep getting paid less and less to do what they do. And so where does the next efficiency leap come from? How do they do the same and potentially more, always being asked to do more for their patients and their residents, and they want to? How are they going to do that? Where's that boost going to come from? And I think AI offers a real opportunity there.
Greg, it's same question, but pivoting a little bit. What are you most excited about, the trends that are coming that you think are impacting long-term care pharmacy? We're at 330 million Americans in the United States. 2037, we're supposed to be eclipsing 350 million. There's 305,000 active pharmacists in the United States. I don't see the math adding up when we have pharmacy deserts. I don't see it adding up for public health. And I think AI is a big answer, but how do you see it becoming a big answer within long-term care pharmacy?
AI specifically, I would. It's yet to be seen on the significant impact it will have. It's been certainly a huge buzzword over the past year and a half. I see it as helping significantly on the marketing side of long-term care pharmacy, helping pharmacies develop that content that they push out quicker, easier. And it's never going to be 100%, but it can certainly help them become more efficient in generating graphics. A lot of the areas that they don't necessarily have all that much support in. Not every pharmacy that markets themselves has a copywriter on staff or a graphic designer that's easy for them to access. So that's one area of AI that I can see pharmacies taking advantage of pretty quickly. As far as again, back to the marketing side, I could see it helping them potentially with market analysis on determining facility counts. I know you can buy a lot of that information, but a lot of it you can't. Facilities, sales opportunities, and aggregating that information a bit quicker versus putting out to someone to perform that research for you. So I see AI having an impact on the marketing side in the shorter term rather than the longer term for long-term care pharmacy specifically.
Yeah, I see an active opportunity for our consultant pharmacies to take a very complex journal article, cut and paste some of that article into ChatGPT, especially with some of the new updates that have just come out within the last couple of weeks. And now asking ChatGPT, please write me a short blog article directed towards a 12th grade reading level, and being able to make sense of dementia, mental health, and how to best keep my mother or father who's getting that to that time and age where they might be experiencing that, and being able to, I don't want to use the word dumb down because we're not trying to dumb down the public, but what we're trying to do is bring it to an understanding level of communication, and then publishing that on your Facebook, publishing that where the consumer is going to access it to see you, that consultant pharmacist, that long-term care focused, geriatric focused pharmacist, to start making sense of things that people are struggling with. They're not able to schedule one-on-ones with their physicians except months and months and months out. And the access to pharmacists are starting to tighten up. All of us on this call today, on this podcast today, 5 years ago, wouldn't have said this, but we're starting to get limits even with pharmacists because of how many needs that there are within the long-term care pharmacy space exactly. But I lean into the marketing side because that's what I'm comfortable with, as the two of you are comfortable with that as well. But when I think of the super deep clinical, the information, the massive amounts of terabits of information that's out there, the right consultant, creative consultant, long-term care pharmacist is going to be able to use something like a ChatGPT to make sense of things for the consumer, so that they look back to that long-term care pharmacy as an expert within that space and within that concern within their community. And I see that as a big advantage in communications with long-term care pharmacy specifically.
That's a great example, Todd. That's kind of dead on. And without the AI tool, that's a very, very time-consuming task. And if it's time consuming, it's probably going to fall off the plate. There are typically other priorities that come along. So I think that's a perfect example of how AI can help, not just in the future, but now. Those are the more simple things that can be applied pretty quickly.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there's a lot of sort of question around, what's the immediate use for it, and particularly in terms of development cycles for technology vendors. It's unlikely you're going to come up with some killer app for AI in the next 6 months in your system, right? That's just not, you wouldn't want to do that. You're not going to roll something out like that. So these kinds of tools that are publicly available, like a Gemini or ChatGPT, these large language models that are available through a web browser, I think those offer a lot of opportunity for pharmacists to get some kind of near-term benefit out of this AI revolution that we're seeing the start of, I suppose. I think another thing, and this will, I think this will take time. It'll kind of we'll have to wait and see how this actually develops. It seems to me that pharmacy processes these days are driven by a lot of logic and rules within systems, workflow logic, flags that you can set up, et cetera. So there's a lot of systems driven activity, which is great, because you want to get your computer to do the routine things for you, the repetitive things for you. You want your computer to, your technology to do that. I think, and there's also, I think, a feature within a lot of pharmacy technology workflows, or some pharmacy technology workflows these days, around the concept of managing by exception. So you're not looking at every single packaging is a great example here. I think you're not, you've got camera systems so that you don't have a person reviewing every single package that comes out of automation, dispensing automation at this point, and saying, oh, hey, or you don't have to anyway, maybe some people still do. But the camera's able to say, well, wait a second, this bag doesn't look like it has the right set of pills in it. And that's a very simple example of being able to say, aha, okay, we flagged that. We know we need to check that one. So that whole notion of managing by exception, rather than having to go through and laboriously apply human brain power to every element of a process, every step of a process. It feels like you don't need AI, I don't think, to manage by exception. Obviously, it's been happening before AI has become such a buzzword. But I think there's going to be opportunity to apply AI to that kind of problem in pharmacy, that kind of potential solution to pharmacy, and see some real benefit where things just get to be massively more efficient, because it's able to manage a scope of data and a repetition of process in ways that it's just challenging for people to deal with.
Greg, you want to hear something scary? All right, I am experimenting with a Google Suite right now that allows you to grab multi-sources of information. It has to be published, it can't be behind a firewall. You gather this, it could be PDFs, websites, cut and paste, documentation, throwing it into the system, recording your audio voice into this platform. You have to record approximately 3 to 5 minutes. It starts getting the cadence of your voice, the sound of your voice. You press enter, and now it builds you a podcast based on all of that collected information. Greg, I'm about out to be out of a job here in probably the next 6 to 24 months.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too soon. But what I've found so far, and everything, it's so much of this is still in its infancy, and we have a long way to go. But some other scary things, though, are just the inaccuracies of something like that. Like when we do we create a graphic, and for example, we created our Christmas card graphic this year through AI, and took seconds, but Santa had 6 fingers, on one hand. Things like that are happening, very, very frequently, and my concern is all right, so, our graphic, the Santa has 6 fingers. We picked it up and we fixed it. But if it's highly technical or clinical data and information, how much can you rely on, an AI type product to be accurate? So I think right now a lot of that is it's going to take time, just as these tools evolve, and how far will they evolve? And we've had conversations, internally, our graphic design team, our video production team, they're a little concerned. You kind of joke about it, Todd, but they're a little concerned about their jobs in the future. And I said, look, we could have said the same thing about desktop publishing. Desktop, creating graphics right on your computer, whereas before a desktop computer, the graphics creation was extremely laborious and specialized. It just you adapt, and if you were a video editor, I wouldn't expect your job to go away unless you're doing a very, very rote type process that can be replicated. But I see kind of harnessing AI tools to enhance your job in your role. But being that expert in leveraging specific AI video editing tools is going to that will be a big part of your role in the future. So I guess if we could look back, kind of rewind the clock back to when desktop design and graphics came online, could have said the same thing. Oh wow, I can just create a graphic on a computer now. I don't need a whole professionally educated graphic designer to create that. I can just do it. Well, in theory you could, but you also have to have the skills to know how to use Illustrator, and you have to have the eye for it. So even though you can do it, it's now possible. It doesn't mean you necessarily can. So you still need that expertise. Their role just changes a little bit or could be a lot, by now learning those tools and incorporating that into their process.
I mean, I think one, it's always unsettling to hear about a new piece of technology that can, Todd, like you said, appear to do something that you do, right? And you talk to pharmacists, and they say that there's a concern about, among staff and pharmacy in general, is technology going to replace me, right? Given the massive ramp up in technology in pharmacies over the last, 20 years, certainly over the last even 5-8 years, and yet there's a staffing shortage, right? It's probably a bunch of trends. It may not be, it's not probably a simple relationship necessarily that the technology wasn't able to replace the staff, but there's clearly still a role for people in something like pharmacy, particularly something as complex as pharmacy, that requires judgment, that requires interpersonal skills, and an ability to use technology tools to the ends of clinical and patient care. So yeah, I mean, I think there's always that concern that technology is going to replace people, but it kind of depends on it's going to shake out, but I don't know if people are necessarily going to be replaced. I think Greg makes a good point. They're probably going to learn how to use new tools that are going to help them do what they do, or maybe do new things.
Yeah, remember the phrase "garbage in, garbage out"? I mean, I remember that when I was in telecommunications. I think I learned that from one of our trainers at Sprint International or whatever at the time that I was at, and that was a big phrase: garbage in, garbage out. And that's exactly the AI positioning. If we are, all three of us are committed to evidence-based something, evidence-based journal review, evidence-based podcasting. I'm one of the first people that took the flag and stuck it in the hill and said, I'm going to do clinical discussions. I want to assure that what I'm talking about is just as good as listening to you reading a journal article. Therefore, I'm going to get two people that had nothing to do with the podcast to sit here and listen, compare the notes, compare the journal article, listen to the podcast, and give us their professional approval. Is this podcast good enough to listen to? And if I relied just on AI at this point right now, you absolutely couldn't get it done without modification, clipping, making sure that it was referenced. But if I did a nice preface, if I took all of the study, the show notes, the journal articles referenced, and I built myself a nice summary or a nice show notes supporter, and then of course go through it, refine it, personalize it, I think it's an accentuator for the B2B world, and that's the world that the three of us are in. And I think it's great for the consumer and patient world, for pharmacists who have published, who know what they're talking about, who know how to leverage information, and then allow AI to take off some of the nuance and some of the maybe indexing or building a content follow base or a map or even a bookmarker. They have a lot of bookmarking that's happening in journaling. So I think it's exciting. I think it goes back to what you both said. There's authenticity in this. There's the side of clinical expertise and assuring that these pharmacists are keeping people alive and keeping them safe. And in my snobbiness of AI, if you said to me, hey, Todd, here is a podcast with three people, which is all 100% AI generated, I might listen to it out of curiosity, but that doesn't really do it for me, as I love listening to people really wrestle with ideas and come to conclusions and talk with each other. And I'm obviously one of the ones that are out there literally doing the podcast, but if I can fly on a wall as quickly as possible and just learn from people, that has to be authentic, and it can't be driven just through artificial intelligence. And not at this point.
Well put, both of you. I think a good example is you brought up Bruce Nealand earlier, and what he's doing right now. He's on the road. He's speaking directly with these pharmacies. Well, Will, all three of us, we could crank out blog post after blog post on just pick something, POS systems, all day long, and so could all the POS vendors and everyone involved with it. But the quality is going to be awful. The volume is going to be overwhelming, so it's just going to become noise. And back to the quality, the end consumer will recognize the just lack of quality very, very quickly. You can tell right now. Still, I feel auto-generated emails that come in from a sales standpoint. So the quality is not going to be there. Whereas you have someone like Bruce, out in the field, speaking to people, and the content that he's producing is, it's interesting, it's detailed, it's just we'll just say high quality, and maybe AI, to Todd's point, will help Bruce pull together a map or help enhance whatever content he's creating. Content itself, it's I think it's just going to be difficult to generate that of any quality.
Well, and Greg, I mean, you say we could all go out there and use our AI platform of choice to give it a prompt and have it say write me content, and maybe if your goal is to populate a blog on your website for some kind of algorithmic reason, although I have a feeling that would be a diminishing proposition, diminishing return proposition ultimately. But I mean, we're going to generate the same stuff. If Todd and I all gave a prompt, and even if our prompt, even if we didn't coordinate our prompt, if we said, write me a blog post about POS, if we looked at them, we'd be like, yeah, this is basically the same thing. And I mean, we've all, tried our hand at these things to see what they're like. It's generic. And it doesn't have, like you say, I mean, again, I'm always happy to use Bruce as an example because he has been such a wonderful resource for pharmacy over the years and such an authentic voice in pharmacy. None of it is gonna be him.
True. I love it. Well, I appreciate the three of you. I've looked up to both of you in your publications. It's as someone who's had to build it from the ground up, I look to your organizations as guides to a lot of what I've built through the Pharmacy Podcast Network, and the partnerships that we've built have just been wonderful. Have so much respect for the both of you. We are excited about the 2024 upcoming user conference. Framework LTC user conference will be October 8th through 10th at the area in Las Vegas. Today's episode of Framework Focus is brought to you by the Framework LTC user conference. If you aren't signed up yet, please go to frameworkltc.com. Go to the events section. You'll find the conference there. The last time I went, 2023, it was wonderful. I got to spend time with Maggie Lockwood, who is your sister and colleague, and it's fun to think of working with. I wish I could work with my sister Teresa. She's my youngest sister. She's a nutritionist. And I was thinking, boy, if I could get her into writing and publishing, but she's just too damn busy. So she said no to me several times. So you have an advantage. So that'll be cool. Are you going to Framework User Group?
Maggie will be there again this year. Maggie will be at the Framework LTC user conference. Yes.
What's the next conference you're going to, Greg?
I'll be at NCPA in Columbus. Just a quirky little thing here. My daughter, she's a senior at Ohio State, and so we're going to actually head out a little bit early, about 6 of us, and taking everyone to a Big Ten game there in Columbus. They're playing Nebraska, so it's going to be a fun NCPA for us this year. A little quirky with the Ohio State connection there, but it'll be fun. So looking forward to NCPA and seeing you all there.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Hey, I want to thank you both for spending time with me on this episode of Framework Focus. For the listeners out there, go to framework.com/podcast for all of the episodes. Once again, frameworkltc.com/podcast, or just go to any of the podcast players. If you want to go to the Apple, Spotify, Amazon, publishing on all of those platforms. This has been a wonderful conversation with two people I have high respect for, and what you've built year after year. And I think our best days are ahead of us, to tell you the truth. So I'm pretty excited about 2025 coming.
Likewise. Todd, thank you very much. Greg, it's been a real pleasure to be on this with you.
Absolutely. You too, Will. And thank you, Todd.
Thank you. You were listening to Framework Focus, a SoftWriters podcast. And anything that we can do for you as a long-term care pharmacy operator, please reach out to us at frameworkltc.com. And with that, we'll see you next time on Framework Focus LTC, Framework Focus Podcast.